Hey everyone, Danielle here with our Getting Started Guide Week 2 video. Last week we covered paper, and this week it's all about the tools that you're going to need to work with the paper. First up is our paper trimmer, and you definitely want to invest in a good quality trimmer. This one is by Fiskars, and I love it. It's fairly small when it's folded up, but as you can see it has this really great extendable arm, so it'll actually stretch out to about 15 inches. So if you're working with a larger project or doing some scrapbooking, no need to worry because you can always fold out that arm. The second thing that's really nice about this paper trimmer, and it's probably actually my favorite feature, is this guide that it has to help you cut. So you just put your paper in, and it has this nice little ledge at the bottom that it just rests on, so it's perfectly straight. And right down the middle of where the blade is going to run, it has this very thin little wire, and that wire is going to show you exactly where the trimmer is going to cut. This comes in really handy if you're cutting around an image or a sentiment and you don't want to get too close and cut part of it off, because I actually had an older cheapy trimmer that didn't have this little guide, and I can't tell you how many times I cut a sentiment and like a little part of it off, and I would have to start over. So it's super simple. You slide your blade down with almost no effort and you get a really clean cut. The blades are great. They're titanium blades that come with this trimmer, and you can buy your replacements at just about any craft store. Super easy to pop out when you do need to change them, and they actually last a really long time. Another favorite feature of mine for this is this little lock. It has a super sharp blade, as we know, and I have small children, so sharp blade and small children is bound for disaster. So they have this little lock here. You just slide it over, and then the blade is stuck in the down position. And then you slide it back, and you can lift it up. Super simple, and it keeps your kids super safe, or yourself. Next, what it has that I really like are these, it has measurements already marked on here. So it has like all these standard sizes for photos or cards. So 3x5, 4x6, 5x7, 4¼ by 5½. So it's super easy if you're trimming photos or making cards. It has all these measurements already on the board here for you. It also has a little ruler down along the bottom, which is super great. So that's our paper trimmer. It's also really slim, so I just stick it under my table and it doesn't take up much space. Next, you're going to need a scoreboard, especially if you're making cards. So I have chosen the Martha Stewart scoreboard for a couple of reasons. Now there's also a scoreboard called the Score Pal, which people like, but after doing a lot of research, I decided on the Martha Stewart one. First, it has more increments for you to score along. It goes every 1/8 of an inch, whereas the Score Pal has less markings for you to score along. So that's super handy. Second is that the bone folder is super thin, so it gets really down into those into the ridges, so you can get a really nice deep crisp fold. So you just line your paper up, pick where you want to mark, push down a few times, slide it along. I always go overboard with it just to make sure. Take your bone folder, smooth it out, and you're always going to end up with a really great crisp fold, which you definitely need for card making. And it has a little compartment at the top where you can just pop your bone folder right back in place. The other neat thing is that it has this little label on the inside of that compartment, and it gives you standard measurements for your cards as well as for envelopes and boxes. So that can really come in handy, although once you start making cards you'll have all those measurements memorized in no time. Another cool feature, which I don't really use often, is they have this little tool that'll slide out from the bottom, and you just line it up in the top corner, and it actually gives you measurements and tells you how to fold some standard envelope sizes, which is great if you're into making envelopes for your cards. So you would just put your paper in, line it up like they show you. It'll give you exactly where to score it, and then you just go ahead and fold it. Once you're done with that little tool, it just slides right back into the bottom of your scoreboard. Of course, it gets stuck for me. Slides right in, and then you can see it's kind of stored right underneath in this little compartment, which is great, so you're not going to lose it. It's also really slim and lightweight, and it's much more inexpensive than the Score Pal if you were actually comparing the two. Plus, you can always get this I got mine at AC Moore with a 50% off coupon, which saves you even more money. Next up, you're going to want a really good pair of scissors, and I know it seems silly, but I started with my regular scissors I had around the house and I really regretted it. I I definitely recommend these Cutter Bee scissors by EK Success. They have a great rubberized grip handle, so they're not going to be slipping out of your hands or giving you blisters if you're doing a lot of cutting. It has this nice little safety cap that pops right on, so you're not going to end up poking yourself, or if you have kids, if they get a hold of them, you have a little bit of time before they can really do any damage. And if you were to throw them in a bag or travel with them, you don't have to worry about that. The top just pops off. It has a really great point right at the end of them, and they're perfect for getting into really tight spots when you're cutting. So I'm going to fast forward through cutting this butterfly, and you can see that I can get right into that really tiny little space by using the tip of the scissors. So you'll get a nice clean cut, and you can get all the way in there and not have to worry about missing a spot. They also make honeybee scissors, which the blades have a non-stick coating on them. So if you're going to be cutting things that are really sticky or with a lot of adhesives, you might want to get those instead. But these regular Cutter Bee ones are great for cutting out stamped images, especially if you're doing a lot of fussy cutting. Next up, you might want to have on hand a self-healing cutting mat, as well as a little craft knife, kind of like an X-Acto knife. The one I use is by Tim Holtz, and I'm really horrible at using it for its intended purpose, which is, cutting paper. Some people are really great with it. I, however, am not. I can cut straight lines with it, and it works really well. It's super sharp, and you just go ahead and slice it off. But I'm really bad when it comes to using it to cut around a circle or cut out a little window or anything like that. So what I actually use it for a lot is picking up little embellishments for my cards or scrapbooks. So if you've ever tried to use these little pearls or rhinestones, you know that you pick it up with your fingers and they're so tiny and they stick and they fall off, and mine half the time end up on the bottom of my socks or God knows where. So I use my craft knife actually for picking these up and manipulating them. So it's nice because it's so thin you can just slide right under and pick it up. Be careful, of course, so you don't push too hard and stab yourself in the finger, but you can just slide them right onto the edge of that blade and then slide them off onto your card wherever you want it. The other nice thing is that it's not going to get stuck to your fingers, and if you decide you don't like where it is and you haven't pushed it down too hard, you can go right back in with that blade and kind of shimmy under, your pearl or rhinestone, pick it up and put it right back, or move it to where you do want to have it. So I definitely recommend having one on hand, if for nothing else than moving embellishments. Next up, we have a T-bone ruler, which I didn't have for a while and I didn't think I needed it, and let me tell you, it is a godsend. If you're like me and you think you can put things on a card straight, then you know that that's really hard to do. So I used to just eyeball it and try and get it straight on the card, and I would get frustrated because I'd put it down and then when I'd stand the card up it was crooked and I'd have to rip it off and the card would rip, super annoying. So I finally invested the, $3 whole that this little ruler cost, and it's amazing. You just line the edge up with the edge of your card, which is straight, and then position your sentiment or border or whatever you have along the ruler, and ta-da, it's straight. No guessing, no eyeballing, no putting it down and peeling it back off. So I would definitely take the $3 and buy one. Plus you can use it as a regular ruler too, and it's see-through, which is nice. You're going to think you don't need this, but you really do. It is a corner chomper, and it rounds corners. And you would be surprised at how many times I find that just rounding a corner really finishes off a card quite nicely. So I'll go ahead and show you. It has two sizes, a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch. And it's super simple to use. You fold out the little flaps, put the paper in the guide, and punch. It doesn't get much simpler than that. That was the 1/4 inch, and I'll show you the 1/2 inch now. And they do actually make another corner chomper, and I believe it's like 3/8 of an inch and 3/4 of an inch, something like that. But they do have another corner chomper with different dimensions. And unlike a hole puncher where the holes just fall out all the time, this has a little compartment in the top that stores your trimmings, and then you just pop it open and you can throw them away. Next, you probably want to get a couple border punches. They're really fun to do the edge of your cards or a strip of paper or sentiment. This is one of my favorites by EK Success. It's, I believe, called the Bubble Punch. I'll link to it below. Here it is punched out on that piece of houndstooth that I actually showed you last week. And I'm going to do a little demo and just show you how it works. Super simple. You just slide your paper in. I usually start at the middle of the strip I'm working with and work my way out. Put it in, squeeze it just like you would a regular hole punch. You'll see all the little trimmings come out the bottom. It gives you a nice clean punch, and then it's super simple to continue the pattern along. All you have to do is take your paper and line it up with the little guides that they have at the bottom of the border punch. So you line up the holes, punch again, and it'll continue it along perfectly all the way to the edge of the paper or however far you want it to go. And then you just clean up your mess or brush it under the floor like I do. You can also get lots of ones that are in different shapes. Stars, this one's a little heart. It actually comes a set of 2. It has a little crown that it comes with as well. Super cute. Another one by EK Success. I like them because they have these little kind of locks on the bottom. So you just switch the lock and it pops open and it's ready to use. And when you're done, you can put it, clip it back and make it close so you can store it really easily. And just like the other one, you put your paper in, squeeze it, and your little shape will pop out. And you can get them in any shape and design and pattern and labels, anything you can think of, you can find these punches in. Those just happen to be 2 of my favorites at the moment. So as you can see, I made a little mess that I really need to clean up. And last but not least, I'm going to show you one of the things that you don't necessarily need to start, but I would definitely recommend investing in one. And that is some sort of die cutting machine. And mine is a Big Shot by Sizzix. And this was one of the first things I bought, and I know it was a little more expensive, but I actually found it at AC Moore and I used a 50% off coupon. It comes with all these components you see here, all these little plates and platforms and everything, and it looks complicated, but it's really not. In fact, the platform that it comes with tells you instructions on how to use all different sorts of dies when you're cutting and embossing folders and things like that. So it's all right there as a reference tool for you. And please, just ignore the top clear plate that you're going to see is cut beyond recognition, but I like to wait till they pretty much break before I replace them. That was one of my favorite dies. It was butterflies. You can also get border dies like this wonky border die. You can get tags like this one. You can get really fun ones that when you cut the paper out and you roll it, it makes rolled flowers or rolled roses. You can get dies in just about any shape, size, pattern, whatever that you can think of. So they're really fun. The 2 companies that I really like to use to buy my dies are Paper Tray Inc., which is where I got the tag die that I showed you. This one here. They have a great selection. And the other company would be My Favorite Things, and that's where the butterflies in the bottom left-hand corner, as well as the rolled flower and the wonky scallop border come from. And so those 2 companies, My Favorite Things and Paper Tray Inc., are definitely where I always go to get my dies. Now I'm going to show you how to use it. You just put your die down, face up or face down. Some people do it the reverse of what I'm doing, but this is how I happen to use my machine. I lay the die down on this platform face up, so the cutting edge is going to be up. And then all you do is place your paper over top of your die, take your cutting board, which won't look like that when you first buy it. Mine's just been used so much. And it has a little crank, just like a handle that you turn up here. You run it through, consider it a workout for the day, and take the plate off, and when you're done you'll see that you have cut whatever shape it is that you're working with. So mine cut through these 3 little butterflies. And yes, I do use butterflies a lot. I actually have a story as to why I love butterflies so much, and maybe someday I'll share it with you, because I'm sure you're all wondering why I'm so obsessed with butterflies. But this one had a lot more detail to it, so I'm just going ahead real quick and punching out the little holes from the wings. But you can see it was super simple. You just roll it through your paper and you can get all sorts of fun shapes. And you can use these die cutting machines for everything from paper to felt to fabric to chipboard. You can cut a lot of things with these dies, not just paper. So they're very versatile. And like I mentioned before, the nice thing about these machines is they are a little bit more expensive. And I'll link to it below, so you can certainly purchase it online, but you can also always find it 9 times out of 10 at one of your big box crafting stores like a Michael's or a Joann's or an AC Moore. And if they do have them in store or online and you have a coupon, then more power to you. You can save yourself a lot of money. So that wraps it up for week 2. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, as usual, email or comment, and I'll see you next week when we're going to talk all about adhesives.